We'll start off with the challenges that are facing the private hire industry. And I'll just go through a sort of list of these things. We're not going to debate these today, but we're going to deal with them offline with the LPHCA members. Well, we still have the loss of the congestion charge exemption. That's a subject that's going on and we're having discussions about. We've got calls to cap PHV numbers. And last time I did this, is there anybody here that's got enough drivers in the room? No. So the calls to cap numbers are just the same response as last time. Everybody I talk to has got shortage of drivers and can't actually meet demand. So the calls to cap numbers are nonsense, really. The calls to inhibit where we can drop off and pick up, that's still very much alive. I was at a Department for Transport meeting a few weeks ago when they were saying you should only be able to drop here and you can't pick up there. It's to do to try and deal with the big app companies, drivers working in the wrong areas. But actually, the rules that they're looking to do will destroy the industry because you won't be able to go about your normal business. That's still a topic for discussion. I've got a meeting with Lady Veer, the new Secretary of State for Transport, agreed with the DFT, but it's an ongoing subject and people are still putting this forward that you should return empty from wherever you are to your existing area. Of course, you can't do that in private hire because we manage our fleets very well and we often try to get people to be picked up where they drop, and it completely destroys that. The onerous English language test we have in London and the inconsistency on that is another subject matter. It's been delayed by the Mayor after a protest that we did, after 2 meetings I've had with him and a third letter, till September 2020, but it's still not resolved. And we need to get a proper fit for purpose English language test. I'd have to do the test. I've been on the planet quite a long time, but I'd have to do an English test that would cost me 200 plus and half a day. And actually, there's no certainty I'd pass it, actually. It's people that have failed. Dyslexic people can't do the test. There's all sorts of issues with it, and the test is not fit for purpose, and we're hoping to get that policy changed. But it's still out there, it's still ongoing. Although we've succeeded in delaying, I should flag that it's still there. We've got the operator fees that are causing much distress. We've lost nearly 50% of the drivers, so we're down from 3,000 to 2,000 in the last couple of years since these operator fees are coming in. And if you're trying to raise money, it's counterproductive, and we're still in very serious dialogues with TfL on that. We've got potential, I just mentioned it just now, but Heathrow are talking about 25 quid to drop off in a few years' time to discourage, to move people from our industry to public transport. And obviously we've got to have the dialogue to say that we are a mode of transport that people choose to get from door to door easily. And people choose that because it's a safe and environmentally friendly mode, and it's a secure mode. Another person was murdered in a tube station the other day. This year we've heard of a man murdered on a public train, a gay couple being beaten up on the buses and what have you. People choose our mode for a reason. It's environmentally friendly. The industry has year on year improved that. So it's very important that we're not surcharged as an industry and that money is then given to public transport when actually we are the mode of public transport. We are people's preferred choice. And we also need, we're working still on the inability of regulators to deal with regulated disruptors that constantly break rules, undermine our industry and compromise public safety. I'm not getting into naming names, but I'm sure you can guess. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of complaints about the major disruptor in the sector. They've been prosecuted 3 times for not having driver insurance, something that if it had happened to me, I'd have lost my licence. And we've had people failed for not having planning consent, yet the big regulatory disruptor can actually drive people around with no insurance, can have passengers assaulted, can have data leaks, and their licence has just been granted again. We're on the case with that, but we're not going to go through that particularly now. Just to talk about national regulations, because national regulations affect everybody, whether in London or elsewhere. And what's been proposed is minimum standards. Well, we've had minimum standards since 1976. Minimum standards mean that local authorities can basically do what they want. As a consequence of that, in recent weeks, I've been talking to a number of people about some of the ridiculous things that actually happen as a consequence of having minimum standards. Yes, you can raise the minimum standards, but if local authorities can then add on and add on and add on standards, they then inhibit you from being able to work. And I'll cover a few of the anomalies in a second on that. So here's a few of them. Tinted windows, seating capacities, colour of vehicle, regulatory signage, branding and advertising, CCTV requirements, and age of vehicles. There are 286 local authorities in the UK, and most of them do something different. How an industry is supposed to work under that, I do not know. We've then got operator fees, different from one side of the road to another. We've got operator licensing requirements, different from one side of the road, one borough, one regulatory authority to another. We've got driver criminal record checks being done at different standards in different authorities. We've got driver medicals being done at different standards in different authorities. We've got driver topographical and knowledge tests being done at different standards to different authorities. We've got driver English tests from none at all to almost impossible to pass. And we've got driver penalties. Drivers are being fined penalty points. And in recent local authority contracts, I went to a group of operators to hear that if their permit sign falls out of the window, it's £100 a day fine. And if they're missing a document, it's a £500 fine. Words fail me. Austerity might be out there, but it shouldn't be for our industry to pay for it. I'll just go through some of these examples very quickly before we move on to the air quality stuff. Age limit special needs accessible vehicle. One of our members called up the other week to say that they were presenting a vehicle to a local authority that was an ex-NHS, completely reconditioned, fully MOT'd, fully compliant wheelchair accessible vehicle. That particular local authority had complained that there's not enough accessible vehicles in their local authority, wheelchair accessible. They rang him up to say, don't bother coming because you won't meet our rules. It's over 5 years old, it's 5 years and 3 months old, therefore we're not going to licence it. This is a very expensive, constructed, with all the kit and caboodle in it, in a local authority that wants to increase its wheelchair accessible vehicles. So, they tried to talk to them. They actually allow, if you've already got a wheelchair accessible vehicle, it to be 10 years old. But if you bring a 5-year and 3-month-old one along, they won't licence it. What a nonsense. And this is what we have to put up with. It was licensed the next day in another local authority. How as an industry can we cope with this nonsense? It really is beyond belief. And the local authority, we want more wheelchair accessible vehicles, but actually we're going to put a thing in place that's going to stop it from happening. Don't know what they're doing. The English language requirements I've already mentioned, so I won't cover that again. Tinted windows. Now, you see all those vehicles at the back there, those lovely executive Mercedes and those people movers. In a number of local authorities, they would not be licensed. They would not be licensed. So, we had a very similar vehicle to the Mercedes at the back go for licensing in a local authority a few weeks ago to be refused the licence. And they said, oh, it's because it's got tinted glass. And they actually misinformed them about the regulation that covers the tinted glass and the government best practice regulations. So this guy has got a very, very expensive vehicle that's bought as a people mover, which can carry a lot more people and therefore has an environmentally friendly footprint. Ironically, these vehicles are used by local authorities for patient transfer and school runs. Again, for the good environmental reasons, it was refused a licence. I got a letter from the council and they said the primary reason for refusing a licence is that the licensing officers couldn't see any illegal activity in the back of the vehicle. What? We criminally record checked, the vehicles are checked. What are they saying about our industry when they are besmirching us that we're all crooks and criminals and illegal activity takes place in the back of private hire vehicles? And they always cite Rotherham. Oh, it's because of Rotherham. Well, Rotherham was nothing to do really with the trade. It was to do with people using taxis and the inadequacies of the local authority. It was nothing to do with our trade, and it's absolutely ridiculous that you can have a vehicle that's fit for purpose in one place and not fit for purpose. And another reason why I'm saying we need national standards on key things. The driver of this vehicle sent me a photograph of an identical vehicle plated by the same local authority. How can we work like this? What's this all about? Is it discrimination? What is it exactly? Do we have to suffer this type of treatment? So we need some national standards on certain things. Oh, we've got a new one now. All vehicles must be white. Well, I wonder what that will do to the price of white vehicles, with 300,000 of them in the UK. And they say, oh, so it doesn't confuse people. Well, if you're a tourist and you rock up in one local authority and the vehicles are white, and you go into another local authority and the vehicles have got a bonnet colour or a stripe or something else on them, again, there's no consistency and there's no logic, because a private hire vehicle is exactly that. It's a private hire vehicle. People book it privately. They're sent the photograph of the driver, the registration, the driver's Christian name, and all manner of other things. It doesn't need to be a certain colour. And guess what the touts would buy or rock up in? What colour do you think they might just choose if you made them all white? You've guessed. Licensing waiting times. There's a lot made of the people that go to Wolverhampton, but when you look behind that, why are they going to Wolverhampton? Could it be because the local authority takes a year to grant a licence for a driver? There's things that are radically wrong in some local authorities, and we've got to get some consistency. Driver and operator penalties, I've mentioned them, being fined for not meeting certain, you haven't got this, you haven't got that, you'll be fined. Money, 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 money. And the bus lane usage. If you all look at the front of the magazine, and there's quite a bit in the magazine in here, we've actually, and that's why we've put them out on the seats, we've gone to some of the madness that in this authority we do this, in that one we do that. It's getting worse. And what's happening is we're being lobbied to death by the taxi industry, who are now prohibiting us from going here. There's roads we can't drive down. So you can take a passenger from a hospital. If you're a taxi, you can go down the road. If you're a private hire vehicle, you can't. If you try and drop off at a station, there's provisions made for taxis and no provisions made for private hire vehicles. And you could say the same about the charging infrastructure as well. A lot of it's been set aside for taxi and not been done for private hire vehicles. We are actively discriminated against, and we've got to get our act together nationally, and why I've spent a little bit of time going through these national issues. For me, we need absolute, not minimum standards. People will disagree with me on this, but to me, I don't know how we can continue to work like this. That you can go to one local authority, get a vehicle licensed, and next day you can get it not licensed. And it is making it up as they go along. They have a meeting, they do a quick consultation. Oh yeah, we're going to do this. No tinted windows. Oh, we're going to have white vehicles. Oh, we're going to, prohibit you from going into this road. And it's becoming almost discriminatory against our sector. And anybody from the local authorities, we're not having to go on all local authorities. What we're saying is there's a number of local authorities that are absolutely getting this spectacularly wrong. And we really do need some national standards. Now, I had a debate about localism last night. I actually believe in localism, but I don't believe in what local authorities are doing here. It's wrong and it's discriminatory. And it's the same with pollution. Taxis are exempted that are chucking out all the muck, and we're not. We have to pay ULEZ charges. And Heathrow plan to do the same thing. We've got to absolutely step up and stop this from happening because it's discrimination. We're actively being discriminated against as a trade. So, we've got to stick together, we've got to increase our membership, and we've got to do a number of things.